Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I see Board Member Kim Irby. We have a seat for you up front. You can come on down. I see you have your grandbaby, so maybe you're just walking her around. So I'd like to first say thank you to Principal Lee Williams for inviting us and hosting us within 2 short hours' notice to come to the beautiful Hairston Middle School. I hope you will all take an opportunity at the end of this to see the renovations to the Media Center, their new recording studios, green room, media center that he funded through his IPG grant. It is absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Principal Williams, for hosting us. I'd like to begin by saying simply, thank you. Yesterday, in the midst of a very difficult economy, the voters of Guilford County passed the largest school district bond in the history of North Carolina. For this historic endeavor, I have to begin by thanking our Smart Bond Committee chairs, Pastor Frank Thomas and Cecilia Thompson, who are here with us today. Thank you so much. They led this campaign. I want to thank our board chair, Dina Hayes, and our vice chair, Winston McGregor, and the Guilford County School board members who have supported this effort. I also thank the Guilford County Board of Commission Chair, Skip Alston, and our Vice Chair, Calvina Foster, and all of the county commissioners who have supported this bond. Commissioner Carly Cook worked the polls so diligently. She was there nearly every day asking the voters to support us. I also want to thank the Guilford County Clerk, Robin Keller, who worked on the communications with this, on the bond. Representative Ashton Clemens, who was at the polls every day, educating voters and soliciting their support. I want to thank the Guilford Education Alliance that is led by the CEO, Winston McGregor, the faith leaders in this community, the GCS external key communicators, our Guilford County Association of Educators, and the president, Kenya Donaldson, who would call every day, all day. Where's Kenya? Okay, there she is, making sure that she was getting the teachers out to support this. The High Point Schools Partnership and the Business High Point, led by Patrick Chapin. Greensboro Chamber of Commerce, led by Brent Christensen and supported by Deborah Hooper, the COO. GC Business, our Guilford County business community who backed this bond, the Community Foundation of Greater Greensboro, and the High Point Community Foundation, Chancellors Harold Martin and Frank Gilliam, President Nito Kubain, and all of the donors to the Smart Bond Committee who are too numerous to name. I also want to thank the internal leadership team of Guilford County Schools who worked endlessly after work hours to make sure that this bond passed. And very specifically, I want to give special thanks to Angie Henry, Michelle Reed, Whitney Oakley, Jose Oliva, Marshall Matson, and Jusmar Manus, who put in just tremendous effort. I want to thank all of the school support officers who were working overtime to make sure this passed. And certainly all of you, the principals and assistant principals. This would not have happened without you. Collectively, the people in this room did over 225 presentations to more than 15,000 people to make sure this passed. Many teachers and support staff also reached out to their community groups, their home associations, and their garden clubs, you name it. Their sorority sisters, fraternity brothers, they reached out. I will never know the extent to which they reached out and the number of meetings held, but I thank all of the teachers and support staff, all of the community members who helped us. In August 2016, I drove through Roanoke, Virginia, crossed into North Carolina, drove into Greensboro, and saw some of the most beautiful, green, lush country I've ever seen in my life. And I said, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been. And I started visiting the schools, as you recall. I remember that Scott Winslow gave me a tour of Northwood Elementary School. He was the principal there at the time. And I remember before I walked in the door, there was a huge hole in front of the building, in the ground. And I said, my God, someone can fall in this hole. It was massive. We then walked through the hallways, and the floors were sinking, and he said, oh, they're gonna pump it up with sand. We then went a few weeks later to a school because the state superintendent, June Atkinson, was visiting, and my staff was ashamed because it was raining and the buckets lined the hallways of the school we were visiting, and they asked me, should we switch schools? I said, no, let the state superintendent see the conditions in which students were learning. I visited Grimsley High School, where larger high school bodies were crammed into classrooms that were 100 years old and seemed to be smaller than 600 square feet, yet 30 students were crammed into the classrooms trying to learn algebra, trying to learn AP biology, trying to learn social studies. Then I found the deaf and hard of hearing students in the basement at Lindley Elementary School, where the pipes were exposed and the clanging was excruciating for those who use assistive hearing devices. I asked the teachers, were they hearing? And they informed me they were. And I shared with them that they probably couldn't tell how painful this was. But for people like me and the students who wear hearing aids, it was just unbearable. And I was only there for about 20 minutes. I immediately moved the students to the new Hunter Elementary School. I can tell you a story like this about at least 100 of our buildings. In the spring and early fall, I have to close schools because of lack of functional air conditioning. In the winter, the heat doesn't work in many of the buildings. Our students have to go home when they need more education, not less. I want to take a moment to thank our Executive Director of Facilities, Johnny Simmons, and the entire maintenance and custodial staff of GCS for doing their best to maintain the buildings and completing more than 25,000 work orders a year, most of the time with less than $5 million a year. Thank you for all that you do. It's important that the public understands that in addition to all of this, when the pandemic hit, most of the schools in the US could not reopen because of air quality issues, the results of years of neglect and underinvestment in school infrastructure. Some estimate the need for public schools in the US exceeds more than $200 billion at this point. We all know an independent study funded jointly by the Board of County Commissioners and the Guilford County School Board in 2019 found that the district schools were in some cases literally falling apart. The average GCS school was built in the 1960s, and more than 50% of our schools were rated as being poor or unsatisfactory. GCS currently has more than $2 billion in facility needs, and that was in 2019 when the study was completed. In 2020, GC voters passed a $300 million bond referendum, which is being used to support 8 new construction projects and the purchase of land for additional projects identified in the facilities master plan. The first project is projected to be completed in 2024, and I'm so pleased that we are breaking ground on 6 of these projects this summer. Building on the initial $300 million from the 2020 bond, the 2022 $1.7 billion school bond will allow us to build 3 new schools on new sites and rebuild 18 existing schools on the current sites. Fully renovate 13 schools that require top-to-bottom improvement, and provide major repairs to additional schools with failing roofs, heat, air conditioning, and plumbing, providing safer and healthier learning environments for Guilford County students and our teachers. The 2022 bond will provide safety upgrades for all district schools across the county. Upgrades include upgrade and upkeep of cameras, digital locks, classroom phones, intercoms, and other security upgrades, including safe entry points. The funding will also allow for modernized classrooms and wireless technology, providing students and teachers with the tools needed for a high-quality education. Investment in our schools is also an investment in our community and local economy. During the next 7 to 10 years, the $1.7 billion bond investment has the potential to create more than 20,000 local jobs. The rebuilding of 18 schools, renovation of 13, and construction of 3 new schools will invest the bond's funding into the community's businesses and vendors who will be part of the local projects. According to a 2020 study by North Carolina State University on the economic impact of public schools, a bond investment could add over $100 million to local property value and add close to $1 billion in cost savings to criminal justice, healthcare, and social welfare. I would like to thank the Guilford County community for investing in our children, teachers, and staff. 1 in 6 Americans is in a school building every single day. They are our children, grandchildren, relatives, neighbors, significant others, spouses, fellow parishioners. They deserve better. The children deserve a great education. I met so many supporters at the polls. Your enthusiasm was inspiring, and the hundreds who assisted at the polls were so grateful. We're just so grateful for the positive energy and well wishes. I also met some who were not supportive of the referenda. Many had misinformation about state lottery funds, the 2020 bond expenditures, school funding in North Carolina in general, what a bond is and how bonds are issued. Others were concerned about school design, among other educational issues. Whatever the concern, we are ever more determined to provide timely, accurate information to the public because misinformation is harmful. Misinformation is dangerous. Whether you have children that attend GCS or not, the schools belong to all of us. I am certain that very soon, all of Guilford County will be proud of our new schools and our college and career-ready graduates. The new facilities are being designed not only as educational centers, but as community hubs and workforce preparation centers to be used by our students and our community members. Today is a great day for Guilford County. It is certainly a great day to be an educator. I thank you on behalf of the tens of thousands of students that we currently serve and the many more we will serve for decades to come. My heart is filled with gratitude. Thank you so much.
Let me say on behalf of the Guilford County Board of Commissioners, again, I want to recognize our Vice Chair, Ms. Carvina Foster, who also served on the school board for a number of years, and a fierce advocate for our schools on our board. And I just want to make sure that she gets her recognition, because this is part of all of what the County Commissioners has been about for the past at least 2 years. We wanted to make sure that we did what is right about the schools. My first introduction to making sure that we did this $1.7 billion was when I visited Smith High School. See, my principal over there, I spent the day with him as principal of the day. And he showed us around at Smith, and it was horrible. And I said, well, if Smith High School is in this type of condition, okay, what about the other schools? And that's when I started doing the tours on Wednesdays, and I see some of the other principals that I met doing those tours, just to see for myself, as a county commissioner, what our teachers and our students are having to look at and deal with every day. I wanted to see it for myself. So I wanted to also bring the media. We had a lot of media that followed us. We wanted to put the condition of those schools in their living rooms, because a lot of us have not been in our schools in the past 20, 30, 40 years. We didn't know the condition. We didn't know anything about the leaking roofs. We didn't know about the air conditionings not being working. We didn't know about the heating. But I had to see it for myself. And that's what motivated me and the other commissioners to do what is right. But for the first time in Guilford County, we saw the problem, we knew about the problem, we did a study that showed us the problem. Now, what are you going to do about it, county commissioners? The school board said, give us the money, we would take care of the problem. And that's what the county commissioners are all supposed to do. Give the money to the schools. We did a joint study, as Dr. Contreras said, it cost $900,000. But we had some that just wanted to put it on the shelf and say, okay, we did the study, we can't do anything about it. No one is going to pass a bond for $2 billion to take care of these problems. So we did a Band-Aid approach in 2020 and did $300 million. And then the majority of this county commissioners said, no, we're not going to put a Band-Aid on this problem anymore. We got a $2 billion problem. We need $1.7 billion to take care of this problem. And we had the gall enough in order to do it. And then this is what happens when our community come together as one Guilford County. And that's what we did. We came together as one Guilford County. For the first time, we said we're going to do what's right about our children. And I've said this time and time again before. Our animal shelter that we just built a couple of years ago is in better condition than 90% of our schools, where we keep our dogs and our cats. So why can't we do what's right about our children and our teachers? They shouldn't have to teach and try to learn under those conditions. So I'm proud to be here today. I'm proud that our citizens came together as one Guilford County in order to do what is right for all of us, because all of us benefit from it. Not only our children, not only our teachers, but our entire community. This is the time that now we can do what is right for Guilford County. The schools that I visited, like Dr. Contreras said, someone built in 1957, 1963, they had some of the same 9x9 tiles that was there in 1963, okay? Some of the same chairs that was there in 1957 at Smith, that was in the auditorium. Okay? Enough is enough. We have the funds now. We are putting our money where our mouth is and where our problems are, and we're going to solve this problem. And never again should we allow our schools to get in this condition again. Never again. And this $1.7 billion, that's only to play catch up. We still have to continue to make sure that they're in the same condition and better condition on a yearly basis. That's the responsibility of the county commissioners. And we are going to accept that responsibility. So we are here for you. The money is going to be there. If somebody might ask, how long is it going to be? When you will get as fast as you can spend it, the county commissioners will push forth the bonds and give you the money. We're not going to hold back. Let us know if you need a $300 million check 1 year or another $400 million the next year. We're going to have the money there. So go forward, bring the plans, get the architects, get the general contractor, get the bulldozers. Let's start building our schools the way that they should be for our children. Thank you.
Wow, that got me all excited, Commissioner Alston. I was talking to Commissioner Alston earlier this morning. We were talking about public safety and what some of the unskilled and skilled labor opportunities from this bond, how it would impact safety in our communities, you know, for people to have an opportunity to do work and to have the resources to take care of themselves. And I want to recognize my colleagues, Deborah Napper, Betty Jenkins, and Kim Irby. I don't know if any other board members are here, but thank you all for coming and getting behind this when it wasn't easy. But one of the things Commissioner Alston and myself were talking about this morning is the 2002, 2003, and 2008 bonds that really came to about $1 billion. But the way it was done in such a piecemeal fashion, you know, 10 schools here, 5 schools there, a couple of media centers here, was not economically efficient. Because now we have to go back. You know, sometimes they say the way out is back through, so now we have to go back through so that we can touch all of our schools and so that we don't have to lose money. So this was an unprecedented facility study where we looked at our schools and our buildings, our facilities and their conditions across the district. So that in itself was a major feat. And I want to thank Dr. Contreras for having a wide enough lens to say, wait a minute, we can't keep doing this, going back to the Band-Aids, because it didn't make sense economically, it didn't make sense in regards to our facilities. And so, I'm really honored and happy to be a part of that. I also want to thank and recognize, I was hanging out with the young folks yesterday, and I'm sort of like a pre-elder. And so, I don't know what I'm gonna cross over, but our juniors and seniors of voting age, whose legacy will be what they left behind, what they have made possible for students that they couldn't experience. All of the college students that showed up, and they were everywhere yesterday. I want to thank the young moms and the young dads and the young partners. I want to thank the retirees and the grandparents and people who don't have anybody else in public education, but willing to get behind this 100%. So I think that the turnout yesterday and the support of this bond speaks volumes about what people value and what people want across lines of differences. And it's rare to have a feeling like this these days, but to be a part of a community that can come together based on what we all want, what we all hold in common, and the principles that we share. So it is indeed a great day, and not just for buildings with amazing programs, workforce opportunities, but our children get to be in an environment that is built for learning and enrichment. And that is going to impact everything from their experiences in our foster care system, their experiences in the healthcare system, their experiences or not with the criminal justice system. So it has far-reaching effects. And I'm looking forward to this. And Commissioner Alston, I'm ready for dirt to be moved and the little thermometer showing the progress that we've made to happen. So thank you, Dr. Contreras and Commissioner Alston. I think you and Commissioner Foster and the other county commissioners that went on the tour to educate people, because people just didn't know. They didn't understand. They didn't see the conditions of our buildings. They didn't understand how important it was and what children and faculty and staff and other people were working in every day. So it was a collective, collaborative effort across this community. So thank you to everyone.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Cecilia Thompson, Executive Director of Action Greensboro, and it was my deep pleasure to co-chair the Smart Bond campaign with my friend and co-chair, Frank Thomas. Frank, you seem so far away right now. We've been, Frank and I have been attached at the hip since 2020 when we had the pleasure of kickstarting this campaign for the $300 million bond referendum that passed at 73%. And with that momentum, we were excited and enthusiastic enthusiastic to launch a second campaign to reach the full $2 billion need for the Guilford County schools. One thing that we have in common, and we have a lot in common in terms of our values, but also is that we do not have children in the public schools here in Guilford County. We're deeply invested in this community, and we're deeply invested in the future of our workforce and our educational system and our economy, and how do we make sure that we can continue to grow this community in more and more vibrant ways. And so we rallied a committee, a cross-sector of leadership in this community, from philanthropists to healthcare professionals, folks in education, both public education and higher education, economic development. The business community came together. They spent hours working on this in committee meetings. We raised dollars from private organizations that helped us fund this campaign. We worked closely with RLF Communications that helped lead the PR campaign effort. We want to thank them, especially Monty Hagler, their leader. And I think it's just a real example of how a community, like Commissioner Alston said, it's an opportunity for the community to come together. And so we're incredibly grateful, and it's always a pleasure to work with teachers and principals and public school administrators. So a true team effort, and I want to thank everybody for their participation, and all the poll workers that came out yesterday. Over, I think, 150 folks came out. And so we're all a little tired today, but we're all real excited. So Frank's always better at closing it than I am, so kicking it to him.
Thank you, Cecilia. I'm Frank Thomas. I pastor Mount Zion Baptist Church in High Point, and I have had the pleasure for the past 2 years to work for Cecilia. And I know this is not church, but I've got something to shout about. We all have something to shout about. And I'll just say it in the way a friend of mine's granddaughter says it: praise-alleluia. And as I was driving, I was talking to my mother, who is a former educator, and my mother says to Guilford County and to the voters and all those who supported this bond, my mother says thank you. As an educator not from here, she knows how important it is and how important it was for us to pass this bond. I also want to thank God for our detractors. Those people who said this couldn't be done and shouldn't be done, I am thankful for them, because they don't know and realize how much they have strengthened my prayer life the past 2 years. But they have helped me understand how important this is, and to continue to pray and understand that every delay is not a denial. I'm thankful that we now have this kickstart. You know, we've stopped kicking the can down the road. I was telling Commissioner Alston, we have finally stopped kicking the can, because the can is tired. The can was full of holes. The can was on the side of the road and needed to go to the recycling bin. So I am thankful that we've stopped kicking the can, and now we have a shot in the arm. Guilford County has a shot in the arm. We have something that makes Guilford County more attractive for more businesses, for a new superintendent, unfortunately. Because had this bond not passed, who would have signed up? Who would have raised their hand to come to a community that didn't support schools? So what we have now is a place, and what we have is something that makes Guilford County more attractive. And now we're well on our way to safe, modern, accessible, renovated, tech-ready schools. I'm excited about the future of Guilford County.
Well, if I knew I was going to have to follow Frank. I guess I really appreciate what you said about thanking our detractors who made us sharpen our saw and be clear about our purpose, our message, our data, which is very clear and accessible and transparent and has been available to us. I want to thank Dina Hayes for her leadership and Skips for his, and they have decades of working together. And I think the social capital and the trust built over those decades has paid off for this community in this moment. And so I hope the two of you see that. I also really want to say thank you to Dr. Contreras, because we had tried for many years to make progress. And I think, Dina, you said she had a lens wide enough to help us find our way. Working with then Chair Alan Duncan and Dina as Vice Chair to barter a deal with a different set of commissioners to get a study done, to get it joint funded, to see political change happen on bodies, but create structure, create systems and process that kept it moving forward despite that change, to keep the vision before us of what is possible, and to really challenge us as adults to take responsibility for what's happening for kids. And I also just want to say thank you, especially to principals, because I know you're leading in these really difficult times. And I also have come to appreciate about how much your social capital means in this community. So you never really quit working. You work when you're a target because a kid or a parent finds you, but even in your off time, you're working on this, and you're sharing with friends, colleagues, neighbors, and you're building support for our system. The very credibility of our system kind of lies on your shoulders. And I appreciate that you carry that and all that you do to really keep the integrity of the institution strong and high. So I appreciate that. And I'll certainly close by thanking my colleagues on the board and thanking the community for just showing up. The folks who took time off to work the polls, who delivered yard signs, who sent emails, all who had other things they could do with their time, and they cheered us on and encouraged us. And it really is a broad base of support. So thank you to all of you, and I really look forward to bringing these schools up out of the ground.
Again, I just want to thank everyone so much. And, you know, I'm a church girl myself and am used to something called testimony service. And so we have 5 principals whose schools are in the next phase. And I just want the community to hear from them about what this is going to mean for them. So we're going to switch seats and allow those principals to come up and just share with the community their gratitude. And all of the schools are going to be touched. But these principals are in the next phase and pretty immediate, and we look forward to it. Can we do the questions from the media first? Oh, okay, that would be fine. Thank you. One thing about the plans. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I think they are what we call healthy schools. So many of our children just have gone through their little lives, they're young, suffering from the weight of poverty. And in their homes, they are used to homes that are unhealthy with respect to the air quality, where they're renting. You know, renting from slumlords, and there are all kinds of air quality issues there. Sometimes they're in unsafe communities. They don't have transportation. They live in food deserts. And then they come to school, and they suffer from the same things. It's not fair that every aspect of their life they are shortchanged. So I think while these schools are exciting in that they'll have really innovative spaces so that they'll be college and career ready, they're innovative in terms of the instructional approaches and learning approaches. More than anything else, they will be healthy spaces, they'll be safe spaces. And that makes me feel good for the students. I wanted one thing when I first I wanted many things, but I knew from the beginning how I wanted it to end. I wanted new schools for students, and I'm happy to say I'm leaving having passed this bond because of this community saw the same thing.
How is that going to affect the rollout of the bond?
Not at all. The quarter-cent sales tax will allow everyone to participate in the school board debt, the school bond debt, which would have generated approximately $20 million. As county commissioners, we had agreed to reduce the tax rate by that 3 cents in order so that we can put some of the burdens, take some of the burdens off the property owners and put it on the people who visit our community. The sales tax is generated by 30 to 35% of outsiders. Also, those who don't own property would be able to participate. It wasn't on groceries, gas, medicine, prescription medicine, that type of thing. So that was our way of trying to spread the debt service. Now the taxpayers won't get that, the property owners won't get that 3 cent tax cut, unfortunately. But that was the decision that the voters decided they didn't want to do. So we will generate the funds through our reevaluation of our tax base that we did this year in order to pay for that debt service, which we're budgeting right now about $52 million a year that we'll start putting aside this year. Okay, in order to pay for that debt, in the latter years, it goes up to like $68 million per year. But for the next 20 years, we're going to be putting aside $52 million a year in order to pay for this debt. So it's not going to stop us at all. Like I said, crank up the bulldozers. Let us know when you want to check. We will write the check. And so there's no delay whatsoever on the school board going forward and building these schools just like the plan called for. We put together a $2 billion plan. And now we can execute that plan with full transparency. Everybody knows what the schools will be affected by it, what will happen in those schools, and that's what we want to make sure. We're not going to miss a beat. Again, execute the plan. Our job is easy, get the money. Their job now is to execute the plan of action. So that's not the county commissioner's call, it's the school board's call. Now the ball is in their court. Go forward. Do what you said you wanted to do in the plan. You have the $2 billion available, go forward.
We put out the RFPs before Election Day for the program managers, for the architects and engineers. We're doing interviews this week. We have a board meeting scheduled. We intend to make the recommendation to the board for the project ordinance for the architects and engineers. The board will make a recommendation, the board leadership, to the rest of the board for the program manager. That will then go to the Board of County Commissioners, the project ordinances, within 2 weeks' time. So we intend to move on this within the next 2 weeks. So we did not wait to see if this would pass. We anticipated it would pass because of the hard work of everyone involved and the commitment of this community to children, and they've shown that to us over and over again.
It reminds me of doing a project at the church. You have several members in the church that don't always understand what's next, what's next, what's next. What gave me a surety in this facilities master plan is it clearly outlines what's next. This dollar amount will trigger the next project. This dollar amount will trigger the next project and the next project and the next project. And all people have to do is go to the facilities master plan. Now, you're not going to be able to read and study it and know it the way some of us have over the past 2 years, but there is a page there that outlines each school and the priority of what's next. So the what's next is already there. It's been there since 2019. Like Commissioner Alston said, we just needed the funding to get there.
Right.
I'll also say, in addition to building the schools, which will be a decade project, we're building schools that require less maintenance, but we do need to work collectively with the commissioners to build that plan so that it doesn't happen again. But the thing that I really think is next for us as a community and as a state is how do we fight for and make room and provision for paying our educators, our staff, and our principals what they deserve. So our work never ends. And I used to work for Habitat for Humanity over a decade ago, and Millard Fuller, the founder of Habitat, used to say, there's plenty of money to eradicate poverty housing. The problem is it's just still in people's pockets. And so I think that we have serious work to do to look at our state budgets, to look at our county budgets, and make the provisions for our educators, our skilled and high demand classified staff, our principals, and our leaders. And so I commit, I'll keep fighting that fight. I know there are members of the community that will be, so that the humans who inhabit these buildings also feel the value and worth that they really do bring.
First, the board schedule is on the website. But we are going to recommend the projects, and we are going to, well, Mrs. Hayes will recommend the program manager, and she'll also recommend to the rest of the board the architects and engineers, which is similar to what we did with the 300 million. After the project ordinance is approved by the Board of Education, it goes to the Board of County Commissioners for a vote.
Are you doing all of the projects?
All of the projects. But we don't have to put them all on at one time. So we may say we're going to recommend the first 15 because we have to be very clear about the timing of this, and we also have to think about swing space, and we don't have any swing space at this time. So we may have to think about buying a building somewhere to allow us to accommodate more swing space and to move more quickly. We may have to buy a school somewhere. There may be a school that's for sale. If that will help us to move more quickly, and then we can renovate that school later as one of the buildings. So I doubt that we will bring forward all 100 projects at one time. All of the schools will be touched, but I doubt we will bring them forward all at one time. I don't have one.
I mean, Jesse, the board will be meeting a lot in small groups, in interviews, and then as a full board. So it's not like the superintendent has some like, oh, I've got it all figured out. Like the staff and the senior team have been working and thinking about this, but the board has work to do over the next few weeks. But we're poised to do that quickly and to continue moving with other processes there that we're engaged in.
We always do. This is nothing different than what we always do. We always bring the project ordinances to the board and always take them then to the Board of County Commissioners. I just can't tell you today how many that will be.
Next question.
I think I did share that, and I talked about how much we learned about misinformation. And many who worked the polls here were stunned by the amount of misinformation about, for example, the state lottery. People think the state lottery funds the maintenance and building of schools. So the state lottery, even though it's called the education lottery, provides $100 million for capital for North Carolina schools. You may recall that I shared Charlotte just funded or shared their budget for one high school is $125 million. So the state's full capital budget within the education lottery wouldn't fund a single high school. For fixing a full HVAC system in a school, I think it's about $17 million. So just think with, is that right? I'm going to make sure. $7 million. So, you know, that would fund maybe 12 schools across the state. There are thousands of schools in North Carolina. So many people were sort of upset about, why aren't you using the lottery funds to build these schools, not understanding that the entire state is sharing $100 million. So those are the sort of things we learned. Lots of people who didn't even understand, you know, what a bond is, how a bond is issued, that sort of thing. So lots of information that we have to make sure the public has, and we have to learn more about where the public gets information. So it's not the traditional news sources anymore as much as we'd like it to be. Lots of it is on social media, and lots of it is false. And it's very difficult to counter something that just runs rampant and so quickly. But we are completely committed, as I said in my comments, to making sure the public has accurate, timely information, making sure they understand that information about expenditures is on the website. They will continue to find that on the district website. Our audit reports are on the website. And that they understand that we are building these schools as community hubs so they can use those. And as we've gone through the design process, we've invited not just parents, but the members of the community surrounding the schools in to participate. And they've been so surprised to be asked what they want in these schools. And we share with them, these are your schools. You own the buildings, and we want you to use them. And in the end, I believe that the community is going to be proud. Even those who voted no are ultimately going to be proud of these facilities, are going to use the facilities, and most of all, are going to be proud of our graduates.
May I just say something real quick? It reminds me again of a church issue. I can't help it. I'm a pastor. But there are many times that decisions are made in the church that everybody doesn't agree with, but they don't lead the church. So what we have to do is we just have to continue to love them. We have to continue to rally around them, because I'm certain that even some people that voted no are walking around town today saying, look at what we did.
space? That space is extraordinarily expensive, but yes, we were talking about it today because it can be, in my opinion, it can be used to also address another need in the community, and that is a need for our foster students, students who live in foster care. And so there might be some space to think about how to work with Health and Human Services for a innovative partnership where we can put multiple schools on that space. It's beautiful. And also have a beautiful space for students who are in foster care. So I intend to talk to the county about that as well, about how do we reach out to federal Health and Human Services about a potential seed money for an initiative like that. Because we are constantly looking for housing, families, for children who are in foster care, and there's a beautiful site right there where they can go to school and live at the same time.
So for me as a principal here in Guilford County, I'm so proud to be here and really see the community rally to come together. For me, I think one of my fourth grade students captured this moment beautifully. So this morning she stopped and asked me, Dr. Alston, did the bond pass? And I told her, yes, it passed. And she said, yes, my teacher finally gets to teach in a building and a classroom that she can really teach the way that I want her to. So to really hear this student think about her teacher and what it means for her as a student at our school, and the great teaching and learning that will happen, it really brings me so much joy and pleasure to really see where we're going to go as a district here in Guilford County, and to just really think about, again, teaching and learning looking different here, and just really, again, thinking about all of the great things that we're going to do here in Guilford County. So I think this fourth grade student really captured this moment beautifully for me here as a principal.
Denise Francisco, I'm the proud principal at Northwest Middle School. Esteemed colleagues and principals, let's do it one more time. It's a great day to be an educator. We hear those words most often from our amazing superintendent, and we are so thankful for your leadership. You are leaving a legacy with our students, our staff members, and with this entire county, and we can't be more thankful for the work that you've done. So thank you for making it a great day to be an educator. And thanks also, thanks to the passing of the $1.7 billion bond, it's also a great day to be a student in this county. We are advancing education for all students in Guilford County schools with the passing of this $1.7 billion. And I can't help but to say that it's a great day to be a Northwest Middle School Viking, because with the passing of this bond, we are one of the 3 new construction projects, and we are ecstatic, excited to begin the planning phase of a new middle school for the Northwest area. So thank you.
Good afternoon, Jed O'Donnell, proud principal at Grimsley Senior High School. It would be remiss of me if I didn't take this opportunity to say how proud I am to be sat up here along with my colleagues and to be part of an amazing school district that welcomed me in 20 years ago as I moved over from another country to the United States of America. In 5, 10, 15 years, when our schools have been rebuilt and revisioned, when our students' educational outcomes have been transformed, when our communities and families have been reborn, will we truly understand and appreciate what we achieved yesterday as a school district and as a community. Our superintendent leaves a legacy that will live long for 50 to 100 years. She should be proud of what she achieved, and And it's up to us, as the principals, as the school leaders, as community members, to pick up the torch of hope and carry it on and make sure that we continue her great work. The future is bright, and the future is Guilford County Schools. Thank you.
Carla Flores Ballesteros. I am the proud principal at Allen J. Elementary, and I am overly excited about the bond results last night. We are one of those buildings that are falling apart, and our students are excited and happy. As Kendrick said, they asked this morning what happened with the bond, and when we shared that it had passed, they were excited to know that we're gonna have better buildings to continue the education that they deserve. All our students deserve better, no matter where they are, no matter what their zip code is. Our students deserved state-of-the-art buildings that mirror their eagerness to learn. Our teachers deserve to teach in schools that support innovating teaching styles. These results also send the message to our students that they matter, that education is important, and that they can dream big dreams, and that the voices are heard because their parents' voices were heard yesterday. Thank you, Dr. Contreras, for your vision on educating the public and for bringing us on board with that vision to be game changers in the best interest of not one student, but all students. History has its eye on Guilford County.
Good afternoon. Marshall Principal at Ben O. Smith High School, and it is indeed a great day to be an educator. It is a great day to be here, and I'm never one to get emotional, and I've always believed, we got to keep a stern face, but it's really hard to sit there in a chair and not get emotional, because this is a vision of not just our great leader, Dr. Contreras, and members of the board and members of the county commissioners. The question was just posed, do our students deserve better? The answer is yes. And it's not just us in this room who are saying that, it's the residents of Guilford County, many who don't even have students in our buildings. But they can't help but to drive by our schools to see that they are literally falling apart. That day that Mr. Alston came and visited Smith, I think it was only a couple of hours' notice. Trust me, there was not enough time in the world to even get our school looking half decent that it should for such a visitor. But I had no issues taking this gentleman through our school to show him the parts of our schools that are a bit embarrassing. And I think my first months at Smith, we made the news because we had parents and communities complaining about our pool, the only indoor pool in all of Guilford County, and it's shared by other schools. But literally in the pools, we have pipes that are rusting. We have air conditioning vents that no longer attach to the ceilings. They've now become detached and laying across pipes. And other areas that people are saying, wait a minute, that's mold, isn't it? No, that's mildew. Because there's so much usage. And our school was open in 1963. John F. Kennedy was still alive in the White House. There are parts of our school, working parts, that were manufactured and put into our school while President Dwight D. Eisenhower was still in the White House. And I believe it's one of our air conditioning systems that actually was built only 10 years after World War II. So it is indeed a great day to be an educator, and it is a great day to see the vision of our leader and the board actually come to full light. And I'm excited for our future.